call, please, Anthony.
Certainly, Councilmember Holland.
Here.
I know Councilmember DeGolia is present, Councilmember Whitmer.
Yep.
Vice Mayor Lewis.
Here,
And Mayor Hawkins Manuelian.
Here.
Thank you.
remotely. Okay, great. Do we have any public comments? And the public comment is for items on the agenda.
Correct.
Because it's a special meeting. Seeing none, we'll move on to our action items. The first one is our discussion of the Center for Age-Friendly Excellence Focus Group and the task force's recommendations and consideration of the application process. So, Anthony, do you want to?
I will give a very brief high-level overview.
Mhm.
As council knows, we last talked about this item on the November 15th, 2023 City Council agenda. Since then, the Center for Age-Friendly Excellence held another meeting on January 5th, which was last Friday, to continue that discussion. The staff report includes a few additional recommendations that are now approved from the task force and the standing committee as recommendations to the city council to be considered for projects and or initiatives to move forward out of the standing committee and the task force. And in addition to that, the task force and standing committee have a recommendation related to the application process for AARP and WHO, which is also included in the staff report. Ultimately, they recommended that the council not move forward with a formal application through the AARP WHO organization, instead opting for developing and drafting a letter of support for the work that was done by CAFE to be shared with the County Board of Supervisors and other interested parties. And with that, I'll take any questions. And I know that we have a few task force members present to receive questions, and also Cynthia, the director from the Center for Age-Friendly Excellence, is available for questions, and she may have a statement.
Thank you, Anthony. And so from the council, do you have any comments or
We
questions?
need closed caption on the video since we can't see the mayor's face.
I can take that.
We can rearrange it or hide it. It's for the ADA stuff with that now.
Somebody needs to
Maybe she
request.
could,
There you go.
okay?
I've got a question.
So and do you have a question regarding this item? Okay, and you have a question? Mr.
Yeah,
Whittemore?
it says the recreation, adult recreation to be incorporated in Holbrook Palmer Park near the or existing playground. Does it have to be there? Because I would think that some of this stuff would be similar to the PARS course. Maybe we have to add something to the PARS course out there.
Yeah,
But I really do think that, for the safety of the children, we shouldn't be having, mixture of adults and children.
well, I think that the thought process was, since we're redoing the children's area, that we would also consider an adult-focused exercise or park course somewhere near or incorporated in the park somewhere. So I personally, I think that your comment is well taken, and once that is going forward, that can be detailed out.
Okay.
Stacy,
Thanks.
do you have any questions?
I did. I just would love to know more about what would be a senior component of the playground. I've seen it in some of the parks nearby have like
Yeah.
elliptical machines, but I'm wondering if there's something more specific that was being considered that would happen
Yeah.
later.
So if I could answer that question, and maybe Mayor Hawkins might also want to chime in on that. I think it was a concept, and that just a broad concept, and the drilling down of specifics has not been discussed at all.
Okay.
So it's, there would be a task force formed to look at that.
Yeah, I think it's a cool idea. I have seen the elliptical stuff being used at some playgrounds. It's usually like the caretaker of the kid gets to like get a quick workout in while they're playing with their kids, and the kids like to play with them. So I think it's cool. I think it's a good idea. I also wonder if it's identical to our existing fitness stuff that's on the park course or whatever it's called on the path. So
Yeah.
we don't need duplication, but
Mayor Hawkins, do you want to chime in on that specifically?
Yeah, I was just going to say that we have an outstanding survey resident survey asking them what they want in the park equipment, including pictures of park equipment. And I don't know how long that's been out, but it'd be interesting. All the people on the committee had not seen that survey. So it might be interesting to ask a question there if it's not too late. I don't know what the end of that thing is and see the
It is
level.
an outstanding survey, so it hasn't been finalized, right?
No, I think it's out. The
No, it's
playground
out.
survey,
I've already
I filled it
responded
out.
to it.
No, but I don't think it's been summarized, returned.
Right, it closes at the end of January.
And summarized.
So I don't know if it's worth adding a question or if that, alters the
That doesn't include
integrity or.
specific questions about.
Yeah.
Right, that's correct.
So this-
Maybe
ahead.
is the mayor referring to a different survey?
No,
No, I'm referring to the park survey that's out that you can answer, but a lot of people that were part of our senior committee had not heard about it. So we pointed them to it, and is a free write-in area so they can write in what it is they're talking about. But I assume whoever's gonna take that data from that whoever's analyzing that will be the people who would address this question, I think, going forward, in addition to the resident committee that's coming out of this.
We'll see what the survey
Yes.
says.
In the first bullet point, it says, this is with regard to a non-Brown Act senior committee that's resident led. This committee will be responsible for providing guidance and volunteer support for senior programs and initiatives. What senior programs and initiatives?
it's to be.
I can't hear you, Rick.
Your mic is muted.
You gotta say it again.
What senior programs and initiatives?
Anthony, do you want to go through what the proposal was?
Certainly.
Because
I'm
I
happy to-
thought you were just asking us to talk right now about the application part and not about all the other recommendations, but
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in there. So
There's
in
about seven.
response to your question, nothing has formally been established. There were a few recommendations that came from the committee. One of them was to partner with the library to install some type of senior information resource area. Another option was to develop a website to be hosted on the town website that was complete and total reference site for people with looking for resources for senior related items. And that might include information about Medicaid, Medicare, the park or transportation, things like that. We also talked about having an annual or a biannual senior information fair. So those are examples of some of the programs or initiatives that were discussed. And this was supposed to be a forum for the council to say what you think to staff and or the task force to move forward. And the last one, I think that probably the biggest lift would be that ongoing senior task force that would be not a Brown Act committee, completely, totally volunteer resident led, but they would, have access to town space, things like that.
Mhm.
Quick question.
Sure.
Anthony, did the committee have access to, or was there presented by staff to the committee, the different activities that are already in place? For example, over at the Little House on Middle Road, Middle Avenue,
Mhm.
as well as, a lot of
Avenidas.
these transportations like Ready Wheels and things like that. Those are out there. All you need is a phone number to call, so.
And just yes, to your question, but to just get there were no proposals that said the town should now create a transportation service or the town should develop its own programs or initiatives. Most of what came from the task force and the standing committee was, well, we need to better educate and inform the residents about what already exists. So to
Okay.
your point, what Little House is doing, what Peninsula Volunteers is doing, what they have at Menlo Park. And it would just be helpful to have some of that information in a few places that people can either physically go to get it, annually come to get it like a fair, and or virtually get it like on our website.
Okay, great.
And also, just be more sensitive and focused on our seniors' needs and with information at the library, information on our website. And I think we've already taken those steps to create that and pushing out information. There was discussion about really, really working to try to get all the seniors' emails, and there was discussion about voter registration information that you can get that tells when people were born, and you can kind of target them that way. Sort of like when you're running a campaign for reelection, to make sure that they are, already in our database. And, we have a couple of the.
Who would do that?
Well, our resident volunteers and some of our staff people, the mayor and I both said that we would be happy to help collate that.
Wait, we
One-
would have Atherton staff people go through the registration list of Atherton registered voters?
ADAP.
Create a list of those that are
No.
born before a certain date?
We're allowed, I think there are rules around voter file access as candidates. The
Mhm.
way we accessed it, there are a lot of restrictions on
Yeah.
how we're allowed to touch it. I don't know if other groups can purchase these lists
Mm-hmm.
for other, but we should
Careful about
That's
that.
be sensitive. This is privileged information that we get access to when we are
Mhm.
candidates and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This,
So
this
one
came
other
up
thing-
because ADAPT is doing an outreach through, they have a collected database of people who've signed up. And when we go to all sorts of public events, ADAPT has a sign up sheet. So one of the efforts they're doing right now is attempt to collect a list of seniors who need a home check in an emergency. And so this list is going to be then put at the assembly points in each of the parts of the neighborhood, and volunteers will go and check on those seniors that need a home check. So that's one of the new things this year that ADAPT is working on. And so that's how this came up in the first place.
One thing that is very pertinent, especially at this time of year, is that anybody, but specifically it's, geared towards seniors, can get free tax returns done at the Senior Center on Jefferson Ave in Redwood City.
Okay.
So that will start in February,
Mhm.
and so.
Well, part of, some of the other things that we talked about, and the couple of task force members are here also who can jump in if they'd like to, is, in our quarterly Athertonian publication that we send out to make sure that there's a column, a page, just targeted just for seniors to, make notices like that.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
we just felt really good about that. And
Really good
can I
idea.
open it up to the public with Joanne or Jeff, Ken?
Let me say one comment.
You have to go then.
This is part of the senior exercise.
You have to get up and stand up.
Pass the
and
test.
lift
I can do. Ken Frederick over in Lindenwood. Let me just say what I thought we meant, and everyone thinks a little differently, but I think it's what we meant. We'd like to create an advisory committee like the Atherton Heritage Tree Committee. Now, I don't know how that was put together. I don't know how the members were put together for that. And that's one of the keys. The idea would be to find a way to put that together and then let that Heritage Committee come back to you and recommend the details of what we're talking about.
The real committee.
And so we got to create that. I don't know how to do that because I know how the regular committees are done, but I don't know how the Atherton Heritage Tree Committee was put together. And so one of our goals is to have a volunteer section to put that together, get the committee, and then let them come back to you with the recommendations. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does anyone know how the tree committee was put
Very high
together?
level.
Love it.
Just an announcement.
Yeah, they all showed up and then decided who was going to run it and that sort of thing.
In the town's serve, it's.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a step we can take if you support it. Thanks.
Okay, does that sound reasonable?
Sounds great to me.
Yeah, I think, one of the other things that came out of this was we were so grateful for the work that Cafe did and inspiring us to really give more focus to our seniors. And we want to get council approval to create a letter of thankfulness to Cafe and submit that to them and to the county, which hired them to do this kind of work for us. So, Joanne, you said it so eloquently in the meeting. Do you want to add anything to what I just said?
Sure. It's hard to follow you, Elizabeth, but I will try. Joanne Sokolov, I also live in Lindenwood. And what I'd like to say before answering that question is the task force took upon itself a focus and an attitude of being strengths-based and identifying the assets that we believe already exist in our town.
Yeah.
And to Mr. Woodmer's point, there is a plethora of services and programs that exist both within and immediately outside of the town. And what we've discovered in talking with fellow residents is a lot of people just don't realize the resources are there. So what the task force would like to do in creating this tree-like committee for senior advocacy is bring all of these precious pieces of information together in a way that is easy to access and to also do some personal outreach to folks. And again, all of this is already being done. We just want to kind of pull it together in a cohesive and clear way so that all of our town residents, because we hope that every single person becomes a senior, right? Knows that these resources are available. And it became very clear, very immediately to all of us on the task force that without the passion and the work of the cafe representatives, it might have taken a long time for us to come to this realization. It's one of those situations where you kind of know what you have and you know you have many, many assets and resources, but until you sit down and actually take inventory, reflect on it, analyze it, and then try to iterate from there, you don't really understand the full value. And so for that reason, we collectively determined that we want to acknowledge this and we want to publicly thank Cafe for doing that for us. And I'm sure that they're doing it with the other towns and cities that they're working with. And their hard work deserves recognition at the county level, both by the county manager and our board of supervisors. So it was our idea to put together a letter that would do exactly that.
Thank you,
Okay,
Joanne.
thanks.
Yes, and that is part of the staff report on page 2 to do that. And I think that's something that, we want to formally take a motion on and approve that we do that. So can we get a motion to?
Or I,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we write a letter of appreciation to the county, thanking them and Cafe for bringing to light senior support and an appreciation for the work that was done here.
I'll second it.
This is a study session. I don't think we really need a motion. Can't we just give direction?
Yes. Okay,
Oh,
fine, okay, well,
All
then
right.
forget my note motion.
Well, I'll agree to it.
Okay.
I'll vote yes
Yes,
anyway.
I'm also
Anyway.
voting yes.
Council consensus is basically
Great.
staff's direction within or staff's recommendations within the report.
Can I say one
Yep.
thing on the senior thing?
Yes.
Just an idea for, since I assume you guys will be on this committee. You guys should talk to Mademoiselle Colette when they get their wine license. Maybe you guys can do like a senior social at the library, like a quarterly senior social kind of a thing. But you should work with her. I know she's trying to,
That would be good.
Absolutely.
right?
I'd go.
So
Then you go.
Yeah, 60 to 8.
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
that's-
I think
that's
you
up
start
with
off
Mademoiselle Colette, but like she's trying to get more integrated in the community. So that might be a really fun way to. work with
Everybody can go
Yeah,
there except for
senior
you,
socials,
because
quarterly
You're not a
se-
senior,
So
Stacy.
the
I'll
other-
come, I can drink alcohol and hang
I-
out.
Yeah, the other thing, I just don't want to be not bring up is the accountability of this task force, this resident-led tree committee task force, that they would come back to council on an annual basis with their recommendations and, you know, a report to us, so that they have accountability to the town, even though it's a volunteer type of a situation, so that we know what's happening and the momentum doesn't slow down. We're all very energized right now, and we want to stay energized, so that would kind of keep your foot to the pedal.
Can I add to that? Do I have to get up to do it?
Yes, you have
Mhm.
to get up. Yeah.
Diana
stand
can't
up.
hear you
There
otherwise.
it is, there's the
Don't worry
adult,
about the exercise, but we don't need it anymore.
there's a
Walk a
senior
little bit over.
exercise program. Come to.
I'd
me.
only add one thing to that,
You're doing
Vice
great.
Mayor, and that is, I think the first deliverable of that supposed committee is what they want to do.
Yes.
And then the second one is a year later, did they do it?
Yes.
And so I think you're going to, if you agree to set up the advisory committee soon, within 30 days or 45 days or some number, you should get a report back from them saying, here's our plan. Do you agree with the plan? If so, we'll go forward. And then at the end of the year, here's what we did. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
I think that's great. And we'll just agendize it.
So I think it's really important that we have this committee. I mean, we have a lot of seniors in Atherton. We all know that. I think it's long overdue. I think it's a great idea. I would encourage the committee to meet quickly and come up with a comprehensive list that can be more comprehensive than you are able to achieve. But it doesn't matter. I think a comprehensive list of what you want to target, it would be great. And I think you should come back to the council anytime you want to. Don't wait for a year. I think it's really important. In the staff report, it just listed sort of some general things, but I think it's up to the committee to get very specific.
Yeah.
With respect to the idea of going through the registrations, voters, and coming up a list of everyone that's born before X date, I absolutely don't want staff to do that. I don't think it's a staff function to do that. If the committee wants to do it, I think we can talk about it. If the committee has the ability to do that, they can choose to do it. I don't think they need staff direction one way or the other. But I think Stacy's comments are well taken. I definitely don't think that our staff should do that. I do think, with respect to the idea of a adult-focused recreation activity or program or design at the park, that should be coordinated with Park and Rec, and there needs to be specificity as to what's desired, because I'm not sure what's desired. Every time this comes up, somebody like Bill today says the park course is all that you need. But I think there's other things that people are thinking about, but they haven't been specifically identified. And to be relevant and to be really considered rather than just some words on paper, there needs to be specificity.
So just one last comment from me, I promise.
You wanted a short meeting and.
I know, but I think that one of the first key things to do is to create a list of senior services that are here with phone numbers, how to get to them, addresses, et cetera. Because, you know, I've been involved in delivering Meals on Wheels, so I've been over at the senior center and I know what they do, and they, they serve meals, they have recreation, things like that. The transportation, I'm aware of what they have. And so I think that many people don't, and they don't know how to get a hold of that. So if we could get a list of, an initial list, and maybe there's something we put at the library, something we put on our website, I think that would be, value add.
Exactly.
I think Anthony has already done some of that.
Yeah, okay.
I
All
have
right,
one more
okay.
for that. Sorry, just another idea for you guys. On this fitness equipment thing, there are trainers who specialize in seniors. So survey them and see like, what do we need that we don't already have? Because they're the ones who are the experts on this, and we could all speculate, but what do I know about that? So that might be a good first activity for your task force.
Anything else?
One thing I wanted to ask is whether or not we are going to close down the subcommittee on this. And one of the things George was saying is that before we close down the subcommittee, we have to be clear what parts the city are following up and what parts the resident group is following up on. So for example, the information list that we were just talking about, Anthony is putting that together, and that will be probably somewhere under senior resources. Often some cities actually publish a whole little book that'll say senior resources, but I think in our case, we'll probably do it on the website. So there are parts of this that are going to be done by us or by the city, and then other parts will be from the resident group. So I don't know if we wanted to spend a minute to just kind of be clear of who's doing what and which parts.
So one of my thoughts also, we talked about having that type of information in the library, maybe a little brochure, little tri-fold brochure or something. And of course, you know, we're talking that there is a money that will be spent. And I think that that has to come from the town. But, you know, and who might put that together, you know, our staff. But that should be pretty easy to do because all that information is readily available. We're not creating a new wheel here.
One of the other reasons why we were talking about that mailing list, just to circle back to why that was relevant, is in the conversations we were saying it's really hard. What came out of these focus groups is really hard for seniors to get access to stuff that's on the internet or that comes in the form of an email. And they were saying, well, what are other ways to get something if we wanted to get information or receive information from our senior residents? One answer was to give them something in the mail. And that's how we ended up with the residence list, because that's one of the sources where you can get their actual home address for mailing. So that's how we got around to that. So I don't know if we will ever want to do any mailing or if we want to publish anything or if we simply want to put it on our website. That might be something to get people's ideas on.
George.
Sure, thank you. So publishing information, gathering up resources, finding what's available in the county with the help of the task force is certainly something the town can do and should be doing. We can certainly use the task force to help write a column or a quarterly piece in the Athertonian that goes to every resident's home address in town. You
Yes.
could do a special edition, you could do an insert, you could do all sorts of things into the Athertonian really easily.
Yeah.
And duplicate all of that on the web and social media, Nextdoor and all those other things as well. I think the council already talked about encouragement for the task force to go off and do and come back with a specific list, but we can certainly handle the lift of putting things and information out there on the town's resources.
Thank you. Yes.
And one other, well, I don't know if we want to talk about the yearly thing. That was the last big idea, but we can wait till the committee gets back to us and say if they want to do that or not.
Well, I
I-
think they do.
I think that was
That
recommended
was
already,
recommended
yeah.
by the members that are here. That I
So
think will
does-
probably
d-
be the founding members of the new task force.
Perhaps we really want to expand it and maybe
It's
even
got to be
move
expanded.
away. One thing we didn't talk about is Sally is the representative from the town to the tree committee.
Yeah.
We'll need someone like Sally
Uh-huh.
for this committee. And that's something you should be thinking about, I believe.
Okay.
Is that fair?
She assists when they need her, but it's just kind of ad hoc.
Yeah, I mean, but she kind of runs, not runs them, but she's a key member.
She's not a-
Okay, somebody raise your hand.
Being like the rail committee.
Yeah, and the rail committee communicates with Robert when they need something. We
Yeah,
can certainly do that with the age-friendly committee too.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I think that, oh, Cynthia, would you like to say something? Yes.
Couple
That's gonna-
moments. Just wanted to say that it was always clear to us how special Atherton was and that there was so many resources here and so much enthusiasm, which I think is really wonderful. And we're thrilled to know that you'll continue to work on this with the task force and on behalf of all of your aging residents, because you have such a high percentage here and that's why that's why we do the work we do. So we really appreciate the recommendation of the letter of endorsement and really are grateful for you for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia, for all your hard work. Okay. That being said, we'll go on to item 2 on our agenda, which is to provide direction to staff regarding the event management services at Holbrook Palmer Park. As you know, our catered to group resigned at the end of December. It just was not a financially feasible for them to continue on. And so I know the former mayor and I, at the time, we, went and interviewed them and they were very excited and I think they put a lot of energy into it. It just, for whatever reason.
COVID got it.
COVID, yeah. So, so we're here to take a look at, what to do next. And so, Robert, do you want to kind of give a little overview of what we're doing?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Vice Mayor, members of the council. So as you have in the report and as the Vice Mayor eloquently stated, we no longer have the services of Cater to market the park, to provide opportunities for touring facilities and scheduling and managing events. The contract that we had with them is unique and different than the way that we had it with other vendors, and that was their choice. With them, we received all of the revenue from the rental fees, and they had exclusive catering rights for events of 50 or more people, and they generated their revenues that way. Preceding them, it was more of a rental split, revenue split on rental facilities with the event management company to provide them with a base compensation rate. But catering was open to anybody that what do you call it? Somebody that reserved the facilities wanted to use. We offered that opportunity to Cater to try and keep them. We also asked them, well, if we were to pay you directly for staff, just to do that, we got that pricing as well. It was felt that that price that they offered was a bit high. And so we have for you a variety of options to consider. And they run the gamut from closing event services at the park, whether that be temporary or permanent, issuing a request for proposals to seek a new vendor. And we would, as we did last time, provide them with the opportunity to tell us what works best for them financially. And so we're providing them with kind of the basic information with regards to how much money we earned or came in through event services. Another option is to try and link up with a neighboring jurisdiction that also has facilities available for rent that have their own staff. And the other option is to try and staff it ourselves, either with part-time help or full-time help, contract or town employee. With that, we provided a draft request for proposals to solicit services if that was the direction that you wanted to go. And so with that, I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay. Council, any questions for Robert about this?
Yeah, if, obviously, there's a lot of activity planned for,
That's already booked.
yeah, I understand, but there's a lot of activity that's planned for facilities improvement,
Oh.
like a substantial amount of work over at Pavilion. There's a restroom upgrade at the, no, they're doing another one at the,
Oh, at the carriage house.
yeah.
Oh, you said pavilion.
Yeah. And then also, maybe solar panels on top of the pavilion. all those things, you know, if we would say that we'll close part of it for a period of time, could we get those things done in a year or 6 months so that we could do a reopening?
It would take some time to design and schedule those items, so I wouldn't guarantee that those things would be done within 6 months or so. I can say there's some things that might be easier to do. For example, not that it's funded, but one of the items that the Park and Rec Committee talked about was the flooring in the pavilion. The carpet is in horrible shape, and there was discussion of changing it to a engineer wood flooring that would be more conducive to events and not require, for example, rental of a dance floor to put out for that. That's probably something that we can accomplish in 6 months or so, getting quotes from flooring vendors and that kind of thing. The bathrooms at the Carriage House has been on our list for quite a while, but that actually requires an architect to design stuff and to get permits and those kinds of things, which will take quite a bit of time. And finding a contractor, which we're not always, which isn't easy to do.
Scale of the job.
So, and then depending on how we want to proceed with the solar at the pavilion, there are different options on doing that, whether it's talking to local solar providers to try and get estimates and quotes versus a full-on RFP.
So closing is kind of out.
Well, I'm going to say, we can close and just not have rentals until something happens to manage them. And if we had events and we were planning to do improvements, we'd have to work around whatever those events were to get those things done.
The list of things that you just mentioned, are those already budgeted? Are they in our budget?
No,
And they're
No, not all of them. We would have to,
bathrooms are-
we'd have to rebudget.
The bathrooms and the carriage house have been in the budget
But
for
oth-
quite a while.
but oth-
But we
there's
can't
just
find a
not a
contract.
start date? So it's approved,
There's no
it's in the
start date. You have to
budget?
have a contractor to have a start date,
And they haven't been designed.
they haven't been designed.
It's a,
but you're not gonna design them until you know you can build it, and
well,
But you
Yeah.
could close the pavilion,
you wanna pay
to the,
for it.
to, Councilmember Whitmer's point, you
having
could
it
close the
done.
pavilion to weddings or large events, but still have it be available while we're planning on doing the flooring or, small group meetings or social meetings just inside the pavilion. Just kind of limit the scope of rental activities
Yeah, and if you reclose it, the North Meadow would still be open.
for tented events mostly, yeah.
Do we have a lot of things on the calendar booked right now? It sounds like this caterer left because there weren't very many.
There are a few things here and there, others that have been, I'll call them penciled into the calendar, but not contracted. And so there are a few events here and there, but like I said, we don't have staff, particularly when somebody has a weekend rental. We don't have anybody here over the weekend to man the event or to directly open facilities. Theoretically, we could leave a set of keys at the PD.
Robert, perhaps also you could talk about what Cater to actually did for an event, from soup to nuts in terms of.
Yeah, so Cater to was responsible for pretty much everything related to event services. So a call comes in, email comes in, they're responding to those inquiries. They're scheduling tours of facilities, walking through what's available, the costs, developing, if somebody's interested, developing the contracts for it, coordinating with us with regards to payment, the financials. They also would then, for events that they are catering, they do the full setup and everything. For events that they're not catering, they would still do event setup and take down if it were
tables and chairs.
tables and chairs type things, making sure that the facilities are cleaned before and after.
It's a lot of work.
The pavilion bathrooms were solely for use with rentals of the pavilion. So that's not even on the cleaning schedule for our cleaning crew. And so we have, if we're taking this on, we'll have to augment our janitorial service to make sure that things are cleaned up. We'd have to make sure that the event space is cleaned before the event, that it's cleaned after the event. And, you know, organizing, calendaring. They also provided financial reporting and other things to the town with regards to what types of rentals were taking place, how much revenue were generated from the rental facility as well as from their catering business. So, and all, you know, and as you know, when you're thinking about booking a venue, it's not a one-time call. It's like as Anthony said, it's a constant back and forth. They call and say, well, how about this? Can I have a band? Can I have this? Can I have that? And dealing with that is something that I currently don't have the staff to support.
Councilmember DeGolia, would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, well, I think that closing the park is not the right thing for us. I mean, we've spent a lot of money to develop the park. The foundation seriously invested in the event garden. I know that people that have had weddings there have loved the space. I do think that there's some improvements we could do, and Park and Rec has talked about those, and maybe this is an opportunity now to like replace the floor. And I guess that would be a mid-year budget change that we could do, and that probably is doable to get that done pretty quickly. I don't think if we decide to put solar panels on the pavilion, that's not going to shut anything down. That's not going to interfere with anybody doing anything. I don't see that as a problem. Clearly, if we are able to find somebody to put improve the bathrooms at the carriage house, which needs to be done, that's going to cause a disruption to the carriage house. But that's just part of the deal. And we haven't found that. We've wanted that for over 2 years now, and we couldn't find anyone to do the work. So I think the worst thing for us to do would be to make a statement that we're closing this park. My preference would be to go out with a request for proposal to try to find somebody. I've given George some comments on the language in the request for proposal. I'd prefer to have us outline a economic arrangement just as we had with Cater 2 and to push the idea of catering. So that hopefully we could find somebody who would be interested in doing catering. But I would leave it open to let them comment on what economic structure would be good for them. I'd also like to see the term not be 2 years, or no, it's 3 years with two 2-year options. Since it's a new vendor, I'd rather it be 1 year with 2-year options. And I think that for the town, it would be best in the interim for us to hire a temporary employee to do what we can do. We're not going to be able to do what Catered 2 did, but they could schedule some things. There can be some events that, I mean, we can only do what we can do. I would take direction from the town on that as to whether that's really feasible. If it's not feasible, then we don't do it. But if it's feasible, I think it would be best for us to keep the park as open as possible. We're just finishing the largest investment we as a town have ever made in the park with this whole new circulation event, and I'd love to be able to show that off and let people enjoy it. Now, and you know, you don't have to rent the park to do that, but it helps. So that would be my preference.
Well,
So-
the closing comment that I made wasn't for forever, just while we did all these major improvements, but
Yeah.
Robert made a good point. It would take more time to get it squared away, so I agree with your proposal and bringing in a temp. Rick.
Stacy, would you like to make a comment on this?
No, I think what Rick said sounds good to me. I'm very much interested in hearing from the town of whether or not getting a temp is something that is inviting trouble or a good idea. But yeah, that sounds reasonable to me.
Okay. no.
Can
That-
we
that-
talk for a minute about the other idea? I'm not proposing an opinion, but the other idea was to hire a person to do it. And in the thing, in the report, there was discussion about how that person could take on other things that we may need help with. So George, can you talk a little bit about how that would play out and what the merits of that would be, the pros and cons of that?
Sure. So if we hired an individual to do that, as Robert mentioned, all the things that Cater 2 would be doing, we still wouldn't be doing even with an employee. That's just not going to be the expertise, and it's only one body. Cater 2 has a bunch of other staff that they could throw at it. So they would more be managing, scheduling the event component of it and saying, pointing to a closet and say, there's where the tables and chairs are, there's where the canopies are, here, you can set up your event. They do the check-in, the check-out, those sorts of things.
So would
We're
that
not gonna-
person then work with there are party planners and wedding planners that exist out there. So that person would work with outside party
Those
planning.
would be the renters, but they would, in the down season, and there is a down season for rentals in the park, they would be available for town staff at City Hall or at the park to help manage pickleball or to help manage activities in the park or other things that occur in the park that are town events and activities. They could do that. It depends on how many hours you would hire that person for. They could be a part-timer or they could be a full-timer. And so there's pros and cons of both.
Sure. So my opinion, go ahead.
I have a question. Seems like one of the issues with this is marketing the park, that it's not that popular.
Mhm.
So who does that? Was that the responsibility of the caterer?
That was the responsibility of the caterer, yeah.
Yeah.
And so if it was a town staff individual, my comments to individual council members when we talked about it was, there's a skill set to that.
Yeah.
And an expertise, and that same person may not have the expertise to help out in Public Works Department.
Mhm.
So you may not find the individual that's gonna be the jack of all trades and do both.
So-
Yeah, if you had a party planner, a professional party planner take this position, they would have our little book with all of our pictures of our facilities at wedding events and, they have those conferences for weddings, but it's not conferences, whatever it's called,
Yeah.
for where people go and they see all the vendors for weddings and stuff. So there is, you're right, it's a very specialized person, but we wouldn't just hire a person off the street. That's the kind of person we would hire.
But a party planner could be a contractor.
Yeah.
But I think you do
Could
that
be.
through an RFP.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't, well, that's an interesting idea. So maybe when we put the RFP out, it doesn't have to go to caterers, it should go to party planners because the caterer then is only gonna,
So my opinion is we need to do something and we can do multi-pronged approach and not just focus on one or the other. But shutting the park down is I think a bad idea. And I think that the marketing of the park is crucial. We've had problems with that in the past. And I remember, the dames would look at it and go, this is really lame. And they tried to help do some marketing, online marketing for the park. Having an employee that we pay that manages the park and fields the inquiries and could do some of this marketing if it's a party planner. I think that is the way to go. I'm not sure that we can get an agreement with a caterer like we did with Cater 2. That was really a different business model than we've ever had before. But, it just may not work.
It's a
obviously.
caterer.
It takes a caterer, yeah.
It
But
it may
then-
not happen, but I think we might as well,
At least
it was
try.
way better for us economically.
Yeah, but it wasn't very good for them. I
Well,
mean,
no, but what wasn't good for them wasn't that structure. It was they got hit by the pandemic
Yeah,
and they never were able to recover from that.
Yeah.
And then coming out of the pandemic, we're doing these big projects in the park. We did redid the event garden, then we've done this whole circulation thing. It just killed their ability to rent the park, so.
can I ask offside question about the landscaping. I know it has the park and rec. We were talking about, refurbishing the event garden so that it got spiffed up because it was looking
Totally
pretty,
contracted for.
okay.
I
I
don't know
haven't
if
been in
is
the
it
park
done?
recently. I don't think it's
Yeah,
done.
the event garden, the enhancements, the replanting and stuff that was funded by the council is done. There were a couple of few warranty tree replacements that were completed as well. It does take time for things to grow. That being said, I think the foundation and others are looking for additional enhancements. But in general, the feedback that we've gotten since Brightview has taken on the landscape maintenance of the park has been quite positive. And we've gotten some positive feedback as well with the work that's been opened up for the circulation project
So
as
I
well.
think that the other thing that the park has going against them is the pavilion looks very dated. It's just so dated. And so anything we can do to make it look a little bit more modern, whether it's the carpet or painting or something,
All of the
that-
above.
all of the
All of
above,
it.
or scraping it and building a new one. I don't know, but it, so, and I know that the carriage house has some magic to it, but it needs, some, improvements. I mean, the upstairs needs to be finished, but that's structural. It's a historic building. And so we're kind of limited in what we can do.
Well,
And
the upstairs is not used. There's no use.
because.
No.
The upstairs is
Will never
storage
be a
pretty
use for
much.
the upstairs.
Unless there's significant improvements and, for
an
example, an
elevator.
elevator and other things, you're
No,
not
but-
going to be able to use the
but-
upstairs.
Like a
The up-
ballroom.
I've been, no, it's not like, it's a hayloft.
Yeah.
How
it's
cool is
Atlas.
that?
There's no use for, I've been up there.
I've been up there too. I agree with
And
Rick.
there's
It's not
no
a good,
use for
it's
it.
not a good place.
It's a
for
storage
having it.
area. It's not realistic. It's lovely. It's absolutely, I mean, other than all the rat crap. But it's lovely, but it's not usable. It's just
Okay.
not usable.
Well, okay. Do we have any public comment?
I have
on
one
this?
more comment.
Yes.
So on the length of the RFP, I think, and I haven't read the draft RFP language, but it seems like there's kind of two prongs, it's management and marketing. And so I don't think we need a 1-year contract. I think we need someone who's invested in a longer term because it's going to take a while to build the business. So we don't want someone coming in expecting to make a ton of money. We want someone coming in being like, we can build with this and we're going to build together. So I don't know how that proposal looks like financially, but I think you don't want someone expecting, like, they should be committed long-term to building something with us, is my view.
Okay.
With regard,
Well taken.
with regards to the RFP and the grading, I thought the experience and the references was low versus the quality of the proposal that they put in.
Mm.
Anybody can make a pretty proposal if they put some money into it, but it's really, do they do a good job? Do they have good references, things like that? So at a minimum, I'd take 15 points off quality and add them into the experience and references.
Anybody have a comment on that proposal? I can,
The only reason that I brought up 1 year is because it's gonna be a new
Totally.
contracting party and we
Yeah.
don't know them. And given the experience that we had in trying to contract out for the cafe here,
Mhm.
I anticipate it won't be easy. Now, maybe, we're out of COVID, maybe it will be easier. The park, the circulation plan's done. I think the park looks awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. The pavilion's extremely dated. The carriage house it's also dated and the main house, none of the facilities are great, but the park is great.
Mhm.
So, I don't know. And I think it could be that we get a caterer or it could be that we get somebody who's, in the party planning business that isn't at all involved in catering. It's just that it'd be a new relationship and
Yeah.
I'm a little, maybe we can judge them in the vetting process that it's sufficient and we can do the 3-year plan. I mean, I think that if somebody's good, they're gonna want 3 years. They're
Right.
not gonna want just 1 year.
Yeah,
I
but they're
agree
gonna
with that.
mark up their proposal.
And they're gonna
say
mark
what
up their
they're
proposal.
interested in, okay? You know, just because it says 1 year or 2 years, if they say, hey, I want a 3-year contract with a 2-year, you know, renewal, mutually agreeable or something like that, they're gonna mark it up, the proposal.
So let me give you a little bit of background for it. And I think that Member Holland's comment is really the one that's pertinent. If somebody is going to put an investment in, and it's going to take a bit of effort on the marketing side to get and drive business, to get their name connected with the park and that kind of thing. So for somebody to make an investment, they need to know that we're in it with them,
Mhm.
not for a short period of time.
Mm.
In the contract that we had with Catered To, we had basically, I think it was a 15 or 18-month out
Mm.
on either side,
Mm.
meaning that once we cross that threshold, it's a 3-year contract,
Mhm.
was our initial, but once we cross that 18-month threshold, either one of us could terminate the contract with notice.
Mhm.
And that's what they did. And so that way there's at least some time for them to establish and try and get the return on their investment.
Mhm.
Some time for us to get used to them and them to get used to us before a decision is made. I'll call it to terminate rather than to extend, meaning that the contract is there, it's running. If everything is going fine, you're going fine. If things are not going fine before we terminate, we're gonna have conversations with them anyway.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Okay.
Good
makes
point.
sense.
And so
Good point.
that's the thought process behind that one.
Okay,
So
George.
before you run out to the public comment portion, maybe I can summarize what we've heard so far, just at the high level. Revise the RFP, include the one-on-one comments that I've received from some council members, plus any comments tonight. Return it to council for approval and ultimate release
Mhm.
with a focus on catering, but leave options open for other solutions. Include party event planning responses as well. Consider the term of the agreement based on the respondents' submissions so that we can make sure we can pick the term we want based on the vendor. Identify and pursue low-hanging fruit projects as part of mid-year, like the flooring in the pavilion, and engage temp help if needed in the interim while we do all of that.
Absolutely. I think the temp help is critical. Yeah.
Perfect. Good
And,
summary.
Yeah.
there was the criteria grading.
Yeah, the one-on-one comments of the RFP, yeah.
Diana, are you okay? Do you want to add anything to that?
You're
I think
muted.
we-
You're
yeah.
muted for some reason.
Well,
No, I was just gonna say that was a perfect summary. I agree with that.
okay.
Public
That's
comment?
it.
Open it up for public comment. Any members of the book? Ken?
You're
Getting
getting
his
your,
exercise.
you're getting your senior exercise.
Don't worry about getting any facilities. I've had the
And
exercise.
we noticed that you ran up.
I did. I'm getting better at this. I've been going to the Park and Rec Committee meetings for over a year, trying to understand exactly what it is, our goals and strategy is for Holbrook Palmer Park. I've yet to figure that out. There's I think I found an old plan that's out of date by a lot. Maybe there's one that's in current. But I can't quite understand what it is the town really wants and what the residents really want in Holbrook Palmer Park. We have the overlying issue of the Stanford issue. And we want to rent stuff, but we don't want to use it. We don't want to have our residents not use it because it's being over rented. And I mean, what's the whole goal? Are we trying to make money on the park? Are we trying to serve our residents and have them? I just don't know what the plan is. And if we're going to go out and spend this money on a survey and the playground / facilities, maybe we should take a deep breath and say, what's our plan here? What do we want in the entire plan? Going back to Bill's comment, you gotta, if you're gonna build out the park, you gotta have a plan saying where it's gonna be, what's gonna look like in 5 or 10 years. So am I missing something? Is there a current plan for the park that I don't know
Yeah.
about that's,
There's a master plan for the park.
and what does it say?
In what regard? It's pretty broad. It covers areas of improvement to the park and areas where residents provided feedback in terms of what their priorities are, where the council priorities are.
You're gonna give me direction for the questions you've been asking here about where things should be and what role we're trying to have?
Yes,
Okay, so it's a current plan. I can just look on the website and find. it.
happy to share a link with it.
All right, thanks.
To answer your question, you know, the park is for the residents and we do rent parts of it out.
But is there,
But it's not a money-making proposition, you know, the town always will subsidize the park and park improvements.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
Any public park is subsidized by.
trying to maximize the marketing in order to reduce what we subsidize?
Trying to manage, you know, so that it's not quote unquote maximized, so it's a balancing act.
Sure, yeah.
And so, and that's why we need.
So how much of the total cost of the park is subsidized by the income from the marketing?
It depends on the year.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
It has been as much as 40, a little 40+%, which is by far the highest
Sure, yeah.
amount of subsidization from rentals of any municipal park that we found.
Yeah.
But because of COVID, it went way down.
Yeah.
And I don't know, so it's
Yeah.
maybe in the low
So,
30s.
so let me interject. I think last year, Robert Barone made a presentation to the Park and Rec Committee a month or so ago. And so all revenue resources into the park, which includes player capital, and the play school, I think we were roughly around 28 to 30% in terms of cost recovery.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's significant. Yeah,
Which is decent.
yeah, yeah. And the
And
key,
that's within the range of what the master plan looked for.
and the charges for the tennis keys and that stuff, is that part of that?
Yeah.
Is that done by Cater too?
So Tennis courts
No,
are
no,
separate.
no.
That's separate.
That's separate, okay.
That is- Okay, all right, if we have direction, we've given direction, this direction's been, sent back to us, so I think that,
Move adjournment.
Yeah, I second that.
1 hour meeting? I've
Meeting
never seen
adjourned.
that.
Fastest meeting you've run, Diane.
Big changes in fall.
Bye, everyone.
thank you,
Right.
Mona.
Thanks. Nice to see you all. Happy New Year.
Diana, thank you.
Diana, that's the way you run the meeting. Get it done in an hour.
All right.
I guess I have to
less.
outsource it. Next one is